The one and only Scotty Fox.
All right, we got the legendary Scotty Fox. What's going on, Scotty?
What's up, man? Good to talk to you again, bro.
I know it's great to talk to you. You know, when I think of music lovers, everybody loves music. I think of you, like in my
Uh,
top five. You know what I mean, though, right?
yeah, absolutely. I love digging for music. Music surrounds me at all times. I love it so much. You know.
It is like I think I'm good with the way music hits people. It makes people react, but you're like the Jedi of this thing. Yeah, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
not quite, but thank you. I appreciate that.
We were talking once about DJing, and I think of this every night when I DJ about you're literally down to how you send people into the streets after a gig and not making them violent. You actually that's something you think about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a flow to the night, especially if you're DJing for a couple hours, 3, 4 hours. There's a definite flow to the night, and you want to end. If you end at a high and it's just like bam, it's like hitting a wall, and they don't know how to release that aggression or energy they've built up. So, you want to like maybe the last 20 minutes start smoothing them out, getting, especially if you're at a club, getting them into that love movement. They're trying to like pick up on someone instead of fighting. They're going to go talk to girls or guys or whatever. So, there's a lot of psychology involved with, especially with DJing clubs and stuff like that, or, long events. It's so, yeah, I do think about stuff like that. I think about, it's like telling a story through the night. There's a beginning, arc, and the climax, and then the end titles. That's how it works.
It really is, and you told me, and that's beautiful. And what do you think about at the beginning of a night? What's something like at the beginning of a night? What
Oh,
would you
that's
think?
that's where you're setting your vibe, setting your tone for the night, but also the first, like, especially in a club, or it's different for like a mobile event or an event where people are already there, and then they're like a wedding and they're just ready to dance. If it's a wedding, as soon as you start, you got to hit them with like hits, get everybody on the floor, boom. But for a club, you're usually like first hour is your chance to play stuff you want to play, kind of set your vibe, set your tone, and begin to tell a story. This is your introduction. As people are coming in, they're not paying attention to the music yet. They're putting their coats down, finding a place to stand, getting a drink, blah, blah, blah. So, but you want them vibing, and you want them ready to go within the first hour, at least, to start dancing a little bit. So, it's just like an introduction, but this is your chance to have your own fun.
Yeah,
Explore what you want to play. If you have new songs that you might want to drop on them, or try out some stuff, that's the chance to do it.
right. Now, what about that? And I find this the most difficult when you're DJing and you have some huge gigs, like you just did something with the Offspring, like when you're DJing between multiple bands at basically an arena in LA where you can't just play hyphy music to make everybody go crazy. Like,
Oh no, no.
what's that mindset to you?
But there's genres that get people hyped too. If I'm playing like that show, I would save like songs like generic early 2000s, late 90s rock songs that everyone knows, like All Star or something. I know it's played out, but that's a sing along song, and it's easy. Nobody has to think too hard about what they're doing. They're just gonna hear it, and you're gonna hit. So in between, you might hit them with All Star, then like Semi Charm, Kind of Life, Lit, My Worst Enemy. Just very, nothing too deep, nothing too think. But these are sing along, fun songs that get an instant reaction. If you're in a crowd of, even if you hate All Star, which so many people do, even if you're in a crowd of 18,000 people and everyone starts singing along with that, you're going to sing along too. It's just the nature of the mob, the nature of a group mentality. And it's just fun. Even if you dislike the
Yeah,
song, you're going to sing along, and you're going to have a good time because you're in the mood and you're in the right headspace for it.
yeah. And don't you think it's weird how songs, when they make their reemergence into culture, they then have a whole nother shelf life? Like I feel like Don't Stop Believing came back and then almost got burnt out on its second run. And the Killers right now,
Yep.
Mr. Brightside is the new Don't Stop Believing to me, in a sense.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at Mr. Brightside over in the UK, that song has never left the charts since it came out in like what year did it came out? Like 99, 2000?
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's never left the chart. That is a generational song. And especially nowadays with social media, especially like TikTok or Instagram, songs like that come into the public consciousness and they never leave. And there's like cultural songs like that. So they they never leave the consciousness. Don't Stop Believing, yeah, it got burnt out pretty bad. To the point where I try not even to play it anymore, except for certain crowds. But Mr. Brightside is, I mean, that's up there. Nobody doesn't sing when that comes on. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a song you cut out all lines all the time, and then you just hear the crowd just going nuts on that. Same thing with like All the Small Things by Blink-182. Burnt out, but they still sing it. You know, it's burnt out for us music heads, but they still sing it, man. That's still a big reaction record.
It really is. You're right. And you know, I think that we talk about songs like this, classic songs like Def Leppard has Pour Some Sugar on Me, Journey has Don't Stop Believing, Jovi has piles of them, you know, Living on a you know, they cross over to like hip hop girls like these songs. It flows. But you know, I think of big artists that we grew up with that don't have those songs. Like Springsteen's my favorite, and I don't care what you say, there's no song that makes him go nuts by that guy.
No, that's true. Like the most recognizable one is Born in the USA, but it's such a kind of a downer record, even though it sounds hype. It's hard to play. People will know Dancing in the Dark because of the Courtney Cox video scene, like doing the white girl dance. And they might know Glory Days, but no, Bruce has never had that one big record that everyone's gonna know and dance to. He's more of his career is what defines him, not individual songs.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just he doesn't have that one, you know, and that's just how it is, you know.
And we were talking with Art Tavana, the author of the Goodbye Guns N' Roses book, and we even said we can say whatever, but Guns, it's really Sweet Child of Mine at best that really makes people go apeshit. I know they play Welcome to the Jungle at sports games, but even them, there's not one that really gets that All the Small Things scream.
No, that's it. Sweet Child of Mine, and it's usually like just the guitar riff at the beginning. It's just Slash. You can play the first verse and you get out after that. Maybe you play the second, but you don't have to. You know, that record, as big as Guns N' Roses is, that record is going to get the same reaction as The Outfield, who, you know, kind of a one-hit wonder, but you're going to get the same reaction with Your Love by The Outfield as you are with Sweet Child of Mine by a band as legendary as Guns N' Roses. It doesn't make Guns N' Roses any less. It's just that's their one song that that's their generational song. Whereas, you know, for metal guys like you or rock guys from the 80s, they'll know, you know, Guns' whole career, but that's the one song that everyone knows.
But it's not a Pour Some Sugar on Me. We're just like it crosses borders.
And Pour Some Sugar on Me is also a reaction record. Like that's a crowd pleaser. Like everyone knows to drink and put your hands up and put your drink up and do that when that song goes on, because that's like kind of a reaction record. That's kind of like a 80s version of We Will Rock You almost. You know, everyone's going to react to it. Everyone knows what to do. Even if you don't really know the record, you're getting, like I said, it goes back to the mob mentality. You see everyone else doing it, you're going to do it too.
Yeah. And what do you think about nostalgia with songs that people like, songs that tie them to a great time in their life, as opposed to like, you can't really hear new music from an artist because you're at a different place in your life? What do you think? How do you think that goes?
Well, you know, that's because nostalgia sells, man. Nostalgia is what it is, especially because nowadays everybody's so focused on what they have to do, especially us older people who want to know, you know, our lives are, we have kids, we have work, I just want to sit down and think about, you know, when I'm having a good time, I don't want to have to think about the music that I'm hearing. I want to just say, oh man, I love this. I remember this. Oh, I remember this. And so when you go to shows, like I've gone to shows with bands I like, and then it's always like, this is our new song. And no matter who it is, you're like, all right. Even if it's great, you're just like, I don't care about the new song. Just give me the hits, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, nothing wrong with it, because nostalgia is why we're there. I mean, I went to see Duran Duran last year. I saw New Order. I saw Pet Shop Boys. You know, I've loved Duran Duran since 1982. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands of all time. I'm not paying all that money and taking myself out of the house on a weeknight to go see Duran Duran to hear them play something off the Astronaut album or like something within the last 5 years, even though they have a couple great songs. No, give me Seven the Ragged Tire. Give me the Rio album. Give me the first album. Give me that stuff. Get, Ordinary World, the Wedding album, stuff like that. I don't want new stuff. I want to not have to think about it. I want nostalgia. I want to feel like I did when I was a kid, riding my bike around the neighborhood or just hanging out with my friends. That's what I want from when I go see a band like Duran Duran or New Order or Pet Shop Boys. That's what I want. I don't want to have to hear new stuff. No, I don't mind it. I get it. The bands have to, they're making money. They're selling. This is their hook to whatever have to do a tour. But, smart bands will keep it like we're going to do one or two from the new.
Totally. That was the template growing up. Introduce one.
I mean, you obviously know.
Yeah, introduce one. Like Springsteen will bring one in and that'll become part of the cat. Yeah.
Yeah, you absolutely know.
Well, being on both sides of it, one thing I saw is that a DJ set, what I lack in DJ skills, I know that there's a thread through a live show, like a Springsteen show. There's an electrical thread that doesn't get broken ever at his show. Right. Now, some bands, you're feeling it, and then it breaks, and then, as David Lee Roth said, hot dog time, get a hot dog, and then they got to build it again. And that's like with DJ sets, when the thread gets broken, it's time to rebuild. And some bands, they break it between every song, and you don't feel that.
And that's unfortunate because, you can see why, like I said, going back to it, Springsteen doesn't have that one huge song, but like I said, his career, and it's his live performance that has sustained him for almost 50 years. I mean,
and he has a universe in his crowd where they argue about songs, the deep cut. There's right. Such a Dungeons and Dragons mentality inside his world. Absolutely.
But his live shows are unparalleled, man. He's such a killer live. And that's part of what he's brought to music, period. So a lot of bands may not have learned that. A lot of bands aren't in it for the love like he is. Sometimes it's like, hey, we have to go on tour because our label screwed us back in the day. So we're short on money. We don't have live forever money. Some of these bands are like that. So it's like, I can go on tour and do a nostalgia show, do 3-4 songs, and then I'm good for a couple months, and they don't have that constant practice. They don't know how to put together a show, and there's nobody out there teaching anybody how to do these things either, so it's nothing, and it's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you just you have to take it as it is, but you're just happy to seeing, flock of seagulls or something you haven't seen in 30 years. But at the same time, you're not going to like see them twice because that, like you said, that thread is broken. So there's a lot of psychology involved. They should be presenting the music in an order, in a way that kind of, gives you that high and low, I want to be up. Now here's their ballad, and then it's back up, and you want to leave the people wanting more, but sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes, artists just don't have the catalog to match that,
Yeah. And once again, to the psychology, I've seen you DJ, and you're one of the few that you can DJ the coolest hipster gig, but then you can shift gears and play High School Musical at a wedding. And but there's you have no anything. Like, how do you, because I've seen some great DJs, including DJ AM, and it's almost like a guy that plays too many leads. It's like a guy that overplays, and you can play that good, but you're overplaying, man.
Yeah, sometimes you got to just know your audience. For AM, I never really thought of his overplaying because at the time he was doing stuff a lot of people couldn't do, especially when Serato was new and the shift to digital, and it was opened up a whole new avenue for all of us to do like acapellas and weird stuff. And I've been doing that on vinyl, but now you had, so much easier to do stuff, and he was just super talented. But like, you want to know your audience pretty well. You want to be able to read the crowd pretty well. You don't want to overstimulate them. You don't want to go too fast on songs. And I'm guilty of that even to this day. Sometimes I'll like be wanting to like, I need to get to this next song because I know it's going to hit really hard. But then I forget that the song that I'm playing is already hitting, and I might jump out of it too fast. Maybe one verse instead of two. You just got to know your audience, know who you're playing for, know your catalog of music pretty well, and just know the vibe you're trying to create. And I'm never song to song. I'm song to 3 songs, 4 songs ahead. I know where I'm going at all times. Like, I have certain songs I'll pick out, and it's like, I know this song is going to do really well right at midnight, so I'm going to build the story to that song. And then this song is going to do really well at 1 o'clock, so I have to, how do I get from 12 to 1 and keep that vibe without losing them, because you can't be raw balls to the wall the whole time. Not everything is that hype, so you have to kind of like figure out how to tell that story in between, and that's always been my philosophy about DJing.
You taught me that, be 3 songs ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And what's strange sometimes, I think, is how something can work in the same situation the night before and not the next night. It's mind blowing. Like you just, sometimes you hit that button and you're ready and everybody's getting hot dogs. You know what I mean?
Sometimes it is, and that's why you have to know, like, you can't be caught out in that situation. That's why you're thinking 3 songs ahead. If I'm caught out and that song is tanking and people are starting to walk off the dance floor, hot dog time. Well, here, I need to get out of it and get to a song that I have ready in my head that is going to get them back, or at least make them pause, like, oh, maybe I'll wait a couple more before I get a hot dog. And then once you have them back, they may never go back get a hot dog.
Right. And that's David Lee Roth quote, by the way, of Wide Van Halen had no slow songs, hot dog time. What do you call it? So you grew up on MTV like myself, right? You were trapped in a room with MTV. We're MTV babies.
Kind of. Actually, I didn't have MTV growing up. My grandparents wouldn't pay for cable, so I had Friday night videos on USA.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And my really good friend Jason, who who I grew up with, he had MTV, and I grew up with my grandparents, but they just shipped me off most weekends to my friend Jason's house, and he had MTV. So while I was there, that's what we were locked into, watching MTV and stuff. But yeah, I didn't have a ton of MTV until about 88, 89, but
okay, I
was very aware of what was going on.
Yes. It's a big influence on you, it feels like.
But also we had out here in the Bay Area, we had Video Soul, which was a video show out of Oakland. And it was, mostly hip hop and R&B. And for where I grew up, that's what I was actually listening to since 84, 85, since breakdance era, Beat Street and all that. I was pretty much all hip hop at the time. So a lot of the rock and that stuff, I didn't come into till later.
Okay.
I didn't listen to that stuff at all. Jason was listening to it. I remember fighting with him one time. We were in the car, and he wanted to put in a Def Leppard tape, and I was so mad. I was like, no,
man.
No, we're going to listen to this breaking soundtrack and you're going to like it, So I wasn't really into that stuff. I had to learn all that on the back end. And I was always very hip hop, and it wasn't until I got to like high school till I started DJing, and then college that I really started to get into like the alternative and rock, and then from there, new wave and 80s music and all that stuff. So, but I mean, it was always in the background of my head, like the music, because in the car, on the radio, but I wasn't like sitting there with listening to all the rock stuff or any of that stuff. I had Duran Duran, but that was a Duran Culture Club, very generic stuff. But mostly after 84, 85, it was all like rap music.
Yeah, I was the same way, where I listened to rock, and I remember Depeche Mode, hip hop, Run DMC, LL, all going by. Girls Like This, maybe you're trapped in a girl's car that's listening to that, the Beastie Boys. But later on, you go, ooh, I got to find out about other genres and expand my world.
Well, it's funny because, like I said, I started DJing in 89 when I was 15, and we started doing, our first gigs were like house parties, but then it was like high schools, and we started getting booked for high schools in San Francisco and the Bay Area, and it was like, oh, we can play all the hip hop and freestyle and that music that everyone wants and Miami bass, whatever, but we need stuff for the white people, and that's literally what we called it. We need records for the white people, and what do we have for the white? What can we play? Bizarre Love Triangle, okay, that's 1. Erasure, cool, that's 2. Enter Sandman, okay, that's 3. We had like 3 or 4 records for the white people, and I remember thinking, especially when we did like a school called St. Ignatius, which is a big Catholic school in San Francisco. We did a dance for them, and I remember thinking, we don't have enough of this music. There's a lot of white people here. We need more. And that's when I started really getting into exploring and, buying those records. And the rest of our group wasn't really buying. They were buying, the rap records or freestyle, whatever. I started buying those records, like I said, Erasure, New Order, Pet Shop Boys, that stuff. Even like, some of the rock stuff that came out, Bon Jovi, Skid Row, stuff like that. So that's when I started really like figure, okay, we need stuff, because if we can play this stuff, we can do any school, and then we can do colleges. And then when I got to college and I lived in the dorms, my roommate was listening to like uh 10,000 Maniacs, Natalie Merchant,
Yeah.
They Might Be Giants. This is early 90s. And then like, REM. And that's when I was like, ooh, I don't like this stuff, but I like this stuff. I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was, I wasn't supposed to like REM, that was for
Yeah.
us, that was the goober music, but it wasn't. And I was like, ooh, this is really good. They Might Be Giants. This shit is crazy. This is
Yeah.
fun. And so that's when you start, and that's why I think right there is why I developed my love of like digging for genres. Like
Yeah.
I find some music that I love and I dig and I learn about it and I go deep in it and I go hard into it. And then later on, I decided, oh, I want to make mixes of this stuff. Can I make a mix of all like Natalie Merchant or REM and stuff? Yeah, I can. But I had to learn how to do it. I had to learn all these genres. I had to learn. Even today, I'm still finding songs that from the '80s that totally missed me, but I'm like, man, I love this so much. Or my favorite genre right now is like '70s rock. There's a lot of stuff I didn't listen to because my mom wasn't. Like I said, when I was little with my mom didn't listen to that stuff. Then I moved with my grandparents, and they listened to no music at all. So I didn't have music around me
Yeah.
except for the most generic level. So now I'm learning everything on my own, and it's become a passion project. You just learn about music, you dig, you find a genre, you build into it, and now there's so many avenues to learn about music. From streaming to blogs to various social medias. It's so much fun. It's so accessible, and I love being able to bring that into myself, package it up, and give it back to people in like a mix of stuff. Like, when I made that heavy metal mix, there's, I knew the basics, but I had to come to you, an
Right.
expert, and you gave me like Brittany Fox and some of the songs I was like, ooh, I wouldn't have known Brittany
Right.
Fox.
Right.
Badass. Loved it. See, so that's, like I said, those little nuggets like that just can make your set over the top, can, present everybody can give you a package, but if you have it wrapped really nice, if you have the right package, people will remember that. And so those little nuggets are what make people remember. And it just helps me remember. It makes me so happy to just learn about stuff like that and dig. And then it just, it's like I said, it's a passion for me.
Yeah. And your Mix Cloud, which I love, I'm going to
Mhm.
put a link to it in the chat. You create a not like it's so nostalgic, and you don't just put a mix up. You put, this is a MySpace era. Like you paint these cool. I mean, they're all like paintings, man. They're great.
They're stories, man. Everybody loves stories, whether you read them, watch them on TV, listen to an album, social media. Everybody loves stories, and I don't want to give you, R&B mix number 5. Da, da, da. I'd rather tell you, hey, what can you connect to that time? Oh, everybody, when these early 2000s songs, we were all listening, or listening to R&B and using our sidekicks or whatever, or two-way pagers to communicate. And then I'll call the mix, hit me on my sidekick and have a picture of
Yeah.
Kim
Yeah.
Kardashian on it. It's stuff like that. So as soon as you see the mix come up on the screen, even if you don't know me or not following me, you're inclined to like, oh, I might know what that's about, and I'm inclined to listen to that. So it's a little bit of marketing, a little bit of nostalgia, and just a little bit of storytelling.
Yeah. And what do you speaking of stories, movies obviously tie into a lot of 80s and things. What movies or TV shows really mean a lot to you?
Classic 80s, Miami Vice. Greatest show of the 80s, in my opinion. I mean, their use of music in that show to set moods, set tones. And then it's a master class. Michael Mann was a master of storytelling with music, just music alone. Just the first episode, driving at night through the city, the lights are going, they're sitting in the spider, and I could feel it coming in the air. Tonight is, the song was big, but it was never any bigger than it was at that moment in your life. The Phil Collins, I Can Feel in the Air Tonight. Like, that music is so perfect. Every time the music comes on in different songs, they use it so well. You're just like, you don't even realize you're listening to a song. You're part of the story, and that song is now part of the story. And that's just, so that obviously, like I said, I was very into hip hop, so Beat Street, Breaking, very important early on. And then later on, just a lot of songs you know, culturally, especially the John Hughes movies. I mean, those are again another masterclass in using music that a lot of people didn't know. I mean, we may not know a lot of Psychedelic Furs music if it wasn't for the Brat Pack movies, like they would not have been as big, or Echo and the Bunnymen, or none of that would not have has been as big. Who would have heard of the Plimsouls without Valley Girl, Million Miles Away? Those records, they're tied to the movies, and they're tied to the nostalgia and the cultural consciousness around those movies. So I'll admit, growing up, I didn't watch like movies like Footloose. Yeah. I didn't care. I thought it was stupid. I still think the concept is stupid, but the soundtrack was incredible.
Yeah.
We all had the cassette. I had the vinyl.
Yeah.
Or even Mannequin. I've never seen Mannequin to this day. I only like movies in the 80s that had like superhero, like guns and machines and stuff like that. But it was just very much so like, like Mannequin has great music in it. That Starship song, the other dance song that was in it. It's just like you pick out these cultural nuggets and they stay in people's head. And like I said, nostalgia sells, man. People remember those things and they want to see them, and they want to be tied to how they felt, like how you felt in 1987, maybe on your first date with a girl or with a guy going to see Mannequin in the theater, how you felt that day. And that song will bring back that memory,
Yeah. Well, I was thinking before we got on, like, I know everybody likes Billie Holiday. There's some, but in 1980, we weren't cranking as much 1940s culture as we are in 2022, cranking 80s culture, Stranger Things. So what do you think? What where does that stand? And what's the psychosis of that?
Well, that's because, again, the 80s started the visual era,
Oh yeah.
We didn't have, Top of the Pops here in the US. The UK had Top of the Pops, and so that was a show, their countdown show every week, and they would have the top 15 artists, and they would play their songs every week, and a lot of times those artists would show up, right, and play, but they couldn't have the same artist play every week. So that's when they started making little like video packages of the songs, and that's kind of where videos showed up. So then when MTV got introduced in 81, like here it comes, but there's no American artists with videos. I mean, there's concert footage, but not really. Yeah.
That's why MTV was scrambling to get videos at first.
So that's why all their first videos were like a lot of that UK new romantic, that stuff, because they just were filling time. They had 24 hours to fill. They didn't do shows back then. So that's why a lot of those videos came through. And then the American labels caught up, and then they started making videos for everybody, but we didn't have a lot. So that's when the world started really expanding. We started seeing, this is an insight into the UK. This is how those people over there, you've got the Scorpions coming out of Germany. You're starting to see what other people around the world are doing, and you're seeing it on your TV. And of course, obviously in the 80s, cable came. So you're seeing a lot more than just what NBC, CBS, ABC was presenting you, which was very Americanized and very focused on middle America. You weren't seeing a lot of the outside world. And so as the visual era began in the 80s, and we were all our parents, well, not you and me, our parents weren't raised on it, but I, as a parent of kids, my kids know all that music because they've seen it from me, they've seen it from social media, they've seen it from TikTok, they've seen it from reruns. And so the 80s has become, because that was kind of the, obviously everybody knows disco and stuff, but that's not as held on to as the 80s. There was a style, there was a nostalgia, there was a vibe, especially centered around MTV and the music that just has locked into people's heads, locked into the consciousness. And honestly, people who are older than us will tell you the 70s weren't all that great.
Yeah.
Right?
My dad says the 70s. My dad says.
The economy was terrible. Like vibrant cities like New York were almost in ruins. Like it was just, but the 80s turned that around. And, not to get all rah-rah, but America was like at its cocaine peak. You know, we were like, everybody was hype, everybody was feeling good, the economy was going, you know, and so people that not that so much that that's the beginning of America, but that's the beginning of modern America. And that's the nostalgia and the cultural consciousness that's in people's heads. Now, this is when everything was good for us. I was growing up in this, I was riding my bike outside. I was, sorry.
Oh.
I was playing Nintendo, you know, doing stuff like that. We had Atari, Nintendo, stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the best toys. I mean, no toys have ever matched what came out in the 80s.
Oh, and you love the toys, right? You got
G.I. Joe, Transformers, Robotech, all that stuff. Man, Mask. I was all about it. I still am. But yeah, so that's why that era has held on. And obviously the 90s are big too, because that's when kind of the hip hop era and MTV really defined a lot of people's mentality. And also MTV kind of took over and presented as we are the end all be all of music. You know, in the 80s, you still had radio doing a lot of things, and MTV was big, but they weren't everywhere. In the 90s, they were everywhere. Everybody had cable. Everybody had MTV. There wasn't a household in America that didn't really have it if you didn't have cable. So that's when it became big and huge. And also when they started to, you know, realize they can't make it on videos alone. But that's a different story. But and you know, obviously what you guys went through with Nirvana and everything changing, MTV did that. You know, I mean, honestly, that wasn't totally just them, but kind of it was. You know, like we're gonna be all Nirvana, all grunge, all day.
Yeah.
And we'll give you the metal guys. We'll give you Headbangers Ball over here at midnight or whatever. But you know, they kind of took the ball and ran with it and held onto it. And so those eras stay in people's minds, and you know, we're totally influenced. Like I tell my kids all the time about G.I. Joe and, you know, the movies that came out in the 80s and stuff, and they don't care too much, but they know what it is, and they see it in social media now too, especially because our generation is so much on it. You know, the Gen X is everywhere still. So
man. And speaking of all, it totally makes sense. And I love that you talk about the consciousness. That's just so important. The music and the consciousness. You DJ for Martha Quinn on the boat a few times. How huge is that?
Oh, man, it's fun. I love doing 80s music, and she's so much fun, and she's such a big part of it. You know, obviously one of the original MTV VJs, and she's still so cool, you know. So yeah, it was like, it was just another gig, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't just another gig. It was like, I'm going to go do what I do, because I know I play music better than 90% of DJs, but this is all, you know, Martha Quinn's here. I better be extra good. And it's just an honor and fun. And that's one of the few times I actually took a picture with a celebrity. You know, I took a picture with her because I don't usually take pictures with people. Man, I had to do that night because that's Martha Quinn, man.
Oh my God. Just so huge. Hey, what do you think Prince's dance floor jam is? I always wonder about that. What do you think? I always get confused with this. What's Prince's jam that lights it up?
It's wait. So what he would want to hear, or what's his song to play?
What do you like? I always get with Prince and Madonna, another two that it seems like they light up the dance floor, but I don't know what the song is. What's the song with those?
Okay,
two?
with it used to be 1999, but that's faded. Let's Go Crazy will always work for Prince. I love playing Baby I'm Not a Star. It's not burnt. It's up tempo, like that's about 138 BPM. Easy to mix with. Great vibe. It's not burnt out. It's one of those records. It's I call it an oh shit record. People hear it and like, oh shit, you know, I know this record. I love this record. I ain't heard it in a while. It's not burnt out to me. That's crazy still, obviously. And you know, When Doves Cry was probably, I want to say that might have been his biggest song ever. At least for that era. And you know, if everybody's in like a groovy mode, not really like hype, Kiss always works.
Yeah.
I'll admit I don't go past that in his catalog. I don't go past 80, 87, 88. Maybe if I'm playing like some slow R&B, I'll play Diamonds and Pearls or Most Beautiful Girl, but I don't really maybe Cream, you know, or Seven. Rarely, you know, I have to be in a mode to play those. So I stick to most of the 80s with that, and I would say Let's Go Crazy. That's
okay. Now let me ask you a question about that, because this is something very basic question. But what are people supposed to do with their bodies when he's talking in that song?
I don't play that. I have a intro version that just goes right into the guitars, man. I'm not
Okay, so you're not going to play the
No.
right? Okay,
I mean, if you can, if you've got them in your hand and you've got a 80s crowd. Now it's got to be a big crowd for this to work. Trust me. It can't work for a crowd of like 30 people.
Yeah.
But if you've got 400 or 500 people and they're in your palm, you go ahead and you hit that stop button and you drop that from the top, and they will not leave because everybody knows that intro. Yes, it's long.
It's so important to me. That's why it's hard with things that are chained to me to not get rid of that. Oh,
right. Yeah, but but sometimes you don't want to drop the energy, even though you know it's going to come back with the song. You don't want to drop that energy. You want to keep some kind of like beat going and stuff. So because that intro is a bit long,
Yeah,
but
like for me, like Bad Bunny, I don't care. I'm not chained. I don't have an emotional connection to his talking intros, so I just cut him out, no problem. But that to me is just so iconic. You know what I mean? It's hard for me sometimes.
Yeah, but people also, the intro version I have, it goes when the elevator tries to break down, go crazy. So that you kind of get a little bit of it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But not the whole thing. And then dun dun comes in with the guitar.
Oh, yeah.
So, and especially if you're playing up there, and that record's 196. So if you're playing up there, they're really jamming anyway. That beat's really going. So you already got them moving. You don't want to stop, to drop them out. So that's just my philosophy. But like I said, if you've really got them in the palm of your hand and they're in there, start from the top. Who cares?
And what do you rock out of that? What do you rock out of that into once it's that high? Because that's scary sometimes.
196. You got Holiday Road by Lindsey Buckingham. You got Stirred Up by Patti LaBelle. You got Neutron Dance, Walking on Sunshine.
Yeah.
There's so many in there. Mirror in the Bathroom. There's maybe not that, but like there are a lot of records that you can get away with up in there. Up in that speed. I tend to, especially when I'm doing my Twitch shows, I like to hover around the 190, 200 for like 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes at the end of the set, send people off just really just woo,
Yeah. We should end with your Twitch show, man. People got to stop by. It's so much fun. I brought so many people over and everybody's it's such a joyful experience, man.
Thank you, man. I enjoy it. I'm back doing it. I stopped for a while because work was getting kind of hectic, but now that I'm out of work, I started going back in the morning, so 8 a.m. Pacific time, 8:15 or so Pacific time till 10 a.m. on Twitch, DJ Scotty Fox. It's 80s music, and I do, 4 days a week, 80s music, not Tuesday mornings, and we try to do different things every day. Sometimes I'll break into just TV shows, theme songs, or stuff like that. I've done whole sets. The other day I played a bunch of stuff from Kids Incorporated. Remember Kids Incorporated?
Yeah.
I played a bunch of that stuff just because it's like shocking. People are like, oh, I remember this. I remember. Oh, and look at Martika and Fergie, so young, stuff like that. So it's fun.
And videos too. You're DJing with video. That's what's really cool.
Exactly. Yeah, you're seeing the videos. And the crowd is great. Nobody's like snobby. Everybody's just vibing with the music. Everybody loves it. And everybody's on the same nostalgic trip as we all are. So it's just fun. Check it out. Come hang out.
It feels like It's the closest thing I've seen that feels like MTV.
Yeah, without the reality shows. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Scotty, for stopping by, man. And
absolutely.
I'll be seeing you soon and hang out. Say goodbye to everybody and stay so I can say goodbye.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for having me on, Britt. Love you, bro.
All right. Love you.